On February 15, 2013, Chelyabinsk, Russia was having an ordinary winter morning, which is exactly when the universe prefers to become rude. People were driving to work, students were arriving at school, factory shifts were beginning, and the city had no reason to look up. Above the Ural Mountains, a rock roughly 20 meters wide was arriving from space at more than 18 kilometers per second.
That is not falling so much as showing up with enough speed to make air behave like concrete. No siren warned the city, because the asteroid came from the bright direction of the sun, where small, dark rocks are very good at being invisible. Then, the morning sky turned white. For a few seconds, a fireball brighter than anything in the street cut across the blue, leaving a giant white scar behind it. Dashcams caught it by accident, because Russia had turned daily traffic into one of the best meteor observatories on Earth.
At first, many people heard almost nothing, which made the flash feel even stranger, like lightning had forgotten its thunder. But overhead, the asteroid was not quietly burning up. It was being crushed by the atmosphere until it exploded. The blast happened high above the ground, around 25 to 30 kilometers up, so there was no city-sized crater. Instead, there was something sneakier. A shockwave racing downward through the air with the energy of hundreds of thousands of tons of TNT. Down below, Chelyabinsk made the most understandable mistake possible. People walked toward windows to see what had just lit the sky.
The light arrived first, because light is annoyingly fast, and physics loves setting traps with timing. About 2 minutes later, the shockwave reached the ground. Windows blew inward across homes, offices, schools, shops, and factories, turning curiosity into one of the most dangerous places to stand. More than 1,500 people were injured, mostly by flying glass, not by meteorite fragments from space. Thousands of buildings were damaged, and for one morning, the city's emergency problem was not fire from the sky, but winter air pouring through shattered windows. In schools, teachers moved children away from glass before anyone fully understood what was happening. In factories, ceiling panels shook, alarms screamed, and workers tried to decide whether the danger was outside, inside, or somehow both. In hospitals and clinics, the story arrived as cuts, bruises, eye pain, shock, and a very long list of people saying they had only gone to look. The strange mercy of Chelyabinsk was that the rock spent most of its violence in the atmosphere instead of on the ground. Most of it disintegrated, but small meteorites still fell west of the city, dark stones from a disaster that had already become evidence.
One fragment punched a hole in the ice of Lake Chebarkul, giving the story the kind of detail that sounds fictional until scientists start pulling rocks from cold water. Investigators used dashcam videos, satellite data, infrasound, and damage maps to reconstruct the asteroid's path, like detectives studying a crime scene with orbital mechanics. Ordinary commuters had accidentally recorded angles, shadows, timestamps, and reflections that turned into scientific measurements. And because the universe has a dreadful sense of scheduling, another asteroid, 2012 DA14, made a close but safe flyby of Earth later that same day. The two events were unrelated, which is reassuring, though it did make February 15 feel like space was clearing out its calendar. Even stranger, a United Nations working group on near-Earth objects was meeting in Vienna that day to discuss planetary defense. Nothing says agenda item like the sky exploding over a city while experts are already in a room talking about sky exploding problems. Chelyabinsk became a wake-up call because it showed that a relatively small asteroid could injure a modern city without ever touching the ground as one big rock. It also showed that the most useful public warning may sound painfully simple. Stay away from windows. That is not a blockbuster line, but broken glass was the real villain in Chelyabinsk, and broken glass does not care about dramatic music. Planetary defense begins with finding the rocks early, tracking their orbits, and sharing warnings clearly enough that ordinary people know what to do. The hard part is that some dangerous small asteroids hide in sunlight, too dim and too close to the sun's glare for ordinary surveys to catch. So agencies now talk about infrared telescopes, warning networks, impact exercises, and spacecraft that could one day push a threatening asteroid off course. This is where Asteroid Day comes in, not as a celebration of disaster, but as a yearly reminder that space rocks are real and preparation is not paranoia. The United Nations observes International Asteroid Day on June 30th, the anniversary of the 1908 Tunguska airburst over Siberia.
Tunguska flattened a vast remote forest. Chelyabinsk shattered windows over a living city, and together they make a very persuasive argument. One event showed what an airburst can do to trees. The other showed what it can do to glass, streets, classrooms, and morning routines. The comfort is not that Earth is safe because space is polite. Space has never sent a customer satisfaction survey. The comfort is that asteroids can be found, warnings can be issued, and some future impact threats may be preventable if we look early enough.
Chelyabinsk did not ask humanity to be fearless. It asked humanity to be less surprised next time. And that is the day the sky exploded over a city. An oddly human reminder that sometimes survival starts with science, timing, and taking one very sensible step away from the window.